Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Attract and Stand Out podcast. I am your host, Darlene Hawley, and I am so excited for today's guest. You guys are in for a treat. I have Hallie Avolio. I think I said that right this time.
You did it perfect.
Yes. She is the founder of Sassy Healthy Fit and the host of the Sassy AF Audio Experience podcast. Sassy Healthy Fit is a lifestyle brand that empowers in-demand women to prioritize themselves and unlock their sassy side without guilt. Hallie is a huge believer in the power of positivity, affirmations, and taking action that is simple, sustainable, and fun. In addition to hosting her podcast, she offers women's circles and runs an active community called the Sassy Woman Sisterhood. She's a writer, a speaker, a beach-goer, and a chocolate and coffee lover. Hallie, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Darlene. It's an honor to be here and so fun to connect with you and your audience. So I'm really excited for this opportunity.
Me as well. Well, let's, before we dive in too much, tell us just a little bit about you. Where do you live? What's your family dynamic? Tell us a little bit.
Sure.
Let's start there.
Well, I live in Santa Barbara, California, and which is, for anyone listening that's not in California, it's on the Central Coast, so between LA and San Francisco, but way closer to LA.
One of my favorite places to go.
Yes, I know as many people. I'm very lucky because my husband grew up here in Santa Barbara. And so we get to live here, which is fantastic because his parents are here and they're very, very helpful, especially with my kids and especially right now when we're homeschooling. So
oh yeah,
that's been a big blessing. So I have 3 kids. My oldest is 12 and a half. And then, so I have 2 boys and a girl. So boy, girl, boy, 12 and a half, 10 and a half, 7. And let's see, did I get all the questions? Those were kind of like the basic ones.
So. Yeah. And like I was saying, Santa Barbara is one of my favorite places to go. When I was younger, in my elementary school days, we lived in Lompoc, which is not too far from Santa Barbara. Yeah. So we used to go down there for like day vacations to get away. We'd either go there or to Solvang or up to Slow. And my sister actually lives up in Slow now. So it's so fun to go back up and visit that area because it's like, it reminds me of my childhood.
Oh, cool.
And it's probably one of my most favorite places to go and just kind of escape. It's got like such a beautiful, like Central Coast vibe, the wineries and all that fun stuff. So.
Well, I like it too. And you know what, especially this summer when we couldn't do kind of our normal summer routine of summer camps and vacations and that sort of thing. I really appreciated that I had access to both the beach and also the mountains. So we did a lot of hiking, we did a lot of exploring, and it's beautiful here. So I definitely feel very, very, very lucky that I live in such a beautiful place, tons of nature around. And over the years, especially in the last couple of years when I've really spent a lot of time focusing on my own self-care, living in a place with so much nature has been really grounding. So I feel really fortunate for that.
Yeah. I'm in the same type of situation because I'm in Southern California, so not too far from you. And we have the vineyards, we have the beach an hour away. I have the mountains an hour, the desert's an hour. Everything's an hour from me. I feel like even big city life. Like I'm an hour from San Diego and an hour from LA in Marietta, California.
Okay.
So right next to the Temecula winery country. Beautiful area. And I feel like I'm so blessed because like you said, like I can pretty much go anywhere and do any type of nature activity within like an hour, which most people, like I'm born and raised in Las Vegas and I had desert. Like there was no real retreat for like a quick, day getaway. So it's so nice to have a place to have self-care so readily available on any given day.
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit then, what is Sassy Healthy Fit? So obviously, tell us more about that. I don't know where I was going with my thought. I was like, I just totally froze. But tell us about Sassy Healthy Fit. What is your business do?
Sure. So my business is really you said it before in my bio, but I want to say it again. So my intention is to empower in-demand women to prioritize themselves and unlock their sassy side without guilt. So if I can break that down a little bit, first of all, who is an in-demand woman? An in-demand woman is a woman like us, Darlene, a woman that is, oftentimes a mom, oftentimes either working full-time in her own business or for somebody else, maybe has a side hustle, likes to be social, likes to be doing things. She likes to be busy, right? But I don't like the word busy, so I say in demand.
Yeah.
And yet she still wants to take care of herself, but sometimes she struggles with, how do I put myself first? how do I practice self-care in a way that makes me feel good? And how do I prioritize myself? Because I'm so good at being available for everyone else. How do I become available for myself? And so, of course, this business was born out of my own need and near breakdown of not taking care of myself as like the quintessential in-demand woman. And now, what does they say? I was talking to a friend yesterday about this, and she said, we end up teaching and coaching what it is that we need the most work on ourselves, right? Because when we're in it, we're learning, we're growing, and then we can teach it the best because we own that experience. So that's definitely true, for myself. And that's really where I come to the table is there's a lot of people that do personal development work, and I respect most of them very, very much. And, my angle is that I want women to be in their authentic self and have fun while doing it and not take themselves so seriously, and just feel really good about practicing self-care, having radical self-acceptance, self-love practices every single day, and just owning who we are.
Yeah. And it's such a thing that I think as women, we put ourselves last in so many instances, especially
So often.
Until we're aware that we shouldn't put ourselves last. I feel like we do that. And I know that it's been something like for myself, I've always had to work on because I'm naturally, I'm an obliger. I'm a people pleaser.
Sure.
I will do anything in the whole entire world for everybody else. And at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, I didn't get anything done for me that I wanted to get done today, or I didn't, take any time for self-care for me, which
Exactly.
I obviously could have definitely used, because usually at that point I'm burnt out, I'm exhausted, I'm fried, and then I'm no good to anybody at that point.
Well, and this is the story that I hear from women all day long. And I'm sure you have too. And there's a lot of stories that we've been told in our patriarchal society. And this is not anti-man. I'm not anti-man, by the way. But like I said, I've got 2 sons and a husband that I love dearly. I love men. I think they're beautiful. We need them. They create balance for us. But the thing is, in our culture and our society, the stories that we're told, the narratives that have been passed down for centuries is women need to give, and nurture. We don't put ourselves first. And the more that we work, the more that we nurture, the more that we give, that equates to our worth.
Yes.
And our worthiness is not dependent upon our burnout. In fact, it's the opposite. And then there's always this saying about the proverbial oxygen mask, right? Put the oxygen mask on yourself first so that you can take care of the person next to you, right? Well, that's all fine and good to say it, but are you actually doing it? So, you have to take that a step further and not just have this thought in your mind about, I'm going to practice self-care. I'm going to put on my oxygen mask. I'm going to do this thing. Great, do the thing. So that's where I take it to the next level, is not just having the thoughts, not just understanding what self-care is, but how do I implement it every single day and take action steps so that it's real in my life? And I'm creating a life that includes self-care so that we can start to change this narrative. Because if our children don't see us putting ourselves first, we're never going to break the cycle.
Yes. Yeah. And I want to go back to something you just said. You said that worthiness is not based off of our busyness and like all the things that we're doing.
Exactly.
How have you seen that show up the most in your life or even in your client's life?
Sure. Well, for myself, a big impetus for the reason that I started my business was because I had been living what I call the checkbox life. So growing up, I did all the things that you were supposed to do, right? I checked all the boxes. I finished high school with good grades. I went to a 4-year college. I graduated from UCLA with honors. I got a job immediately after I graduated college. So I started in corporate America 2 weeks after. I started, working my way up that corporate ladder. I married my college boyfriend. We got the dog, we bought the house, like we did all these things, right? It's like check,
Yeah.
down to like having the babies and all this. And I'm not complaining about any of that because there's so much good and bounty and beautifulness that came out of that. I don't know if beautifulness is a word, but I'm claiming it.
It is
And but what happened was somewhere along the way, I started to lose myself. And it was like after I had 3 kids and I had checked all these boxes, right? I felt like I don't have anything else to check. Who am I? what defines me? What makes me worthy? And so what I did to determine my worthiness is that I would drown myself in being busy. So I was like volunteering for every organization, you know, nonprofit organizations, for the school. I would sign up for anything that my kids asked me for. I'm always taking them places. I'm never asking for help. I'm doing all the things and doing for everyone else, because in my mind, I'm like, how else do I define myself? This is the only way, is that if I'm constantly doing and people see that I'm doing, that must make me worthy. And I see this again and again with my clients, right? Same sort of situation. So it's about changing the narrative, and it's about really understanding that our self-worth is not dependent on doing for others, and our self-worth is not by hustling, burning out, making ourselves crazy. You know, you can have all the money in the world and all the material possessions in the world and be miserable and not know who you are, because you haven't taken the time to go inward and really determine, what are my core values? What lights me up? What raises my vibrations and makes me feel really good about myself? So those are the questions that I ask myself and I have my clients ask, because in my opinion, that's what defines your worthiness, is when you're living in alignment with your core values.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you brought up values, because that's something that I talk about a lot with my clients. And I was even at a retreat the past 2 days virtually. And that was one of the main things that was talked about was,
oh, cool,
when you're running your business, how you need to like stay true to your values, and like
yeah,
every day, like relook at those and make sure that you're staying in alignment with where you're trying to go, instead of growing these businesses that maybe don't align with who we actually are. And that's
right,
why we're not calling in our ideal clients, and why we're not showing up and creating content in a way that's resonating with people. A lot of the times it's because we're not in alignment with who we actually want to be. We're trying to be somebody else. We're trying to do things like maybe other entrepreneurs are doing, right?
right,
We've all probably been guilty at one point or another, where we're like, oh, so-and-so's doing this amazing new thing over here. Let's go try that for our business. And that's one area that I know to rein in now, but I didn't know this in the beginning of my career, right? Like when I first started coaching, I was trying to be everywhere. I was trying to do everything like everybody else was doing.
right,
And I was losing who I was in the process, because nothing that was showing up online or even in person was actually me. It was me trying. I always like to say that I felt like a little girl playing dress up in her
yeah,
mom's clothes, because I was putting so much emphasis and trying to be like somebody else that I lost myself completely. But when I
yeah,
came back to my core values and I actually showed up as me, and what was important to me is what I talked about, and not, you know, the shiny objects of the world that
right,
everybody else is doing, like that's when things really resonated.
right,
So let's talk a little bit. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you use values in your business,
yeah,
and what
yeah.
that
Well,
looks like.
I actually am curious, if you don't mind sharing, Darlene, I would love to know, because you said that you've done some work recently on identifying core values. How do you keep them at the forefront for yourself so that you don't forget what they are?
Yeah, so I'm going to be doing something new actually next week, because one of the things that I took away from this retreat that I was just at was to actually have my values um, on the wall in front of me. And I
Ooh, I
love that
love
idea.
it.
I was like, I don't have it right now. I usually journal it though. Like I
Yeah,
have, when I'm journaling, I have my values are written down in my journal, and I like to rewrite them out at least once or twice a week, just to kind
yeah,
of keep them top of mind. But it hasn't been always something that was forefront. And so when I got the idea this week to have them on the board in front of me, I was like, oh, I love that, because then it's that constant reminder, like, this is who
yes,
you are. And when ideas out of nowhere, or if somebody says something, or if I'm asked to do something, maybe like to be on a summit or to do something, whatever, like I can check in with who that person is and make sure that they actually align with my values, because that's when I'm going to show up as my best. And
right,
I'm going to feel good if they do. But then if there's somebody who's out of alignment with my values, that's usually, you can feel it in the conversation. You can feel it, especially with clients, right? Like, especially if you're working with a client, if you have a very strong value and they have the opposite value when
right,
it comes to that, like it makes it really hard to work on those relationships and work with people. So
right,
I think just making it a forefront, like, this is who I am. Like, I try to make sure that in my content and my marketing, if you go to my website, like, you can get a pretty good feel of who I am by going to
right,
those places. if you've never talked to me before. And then when you talk to me, you're going to see those values come out that way as well, versus if you meet me in person, like the core of who you are, and you're able to connect better with your clients and your friends or your alliance partners, whatever those people are. Like you're able to build real, true relationships, I feel like, when you're in integrity with your values.
Right. Well, and that's what I was gonna offer, is that for me, I feel that core values are very, very important to have them in front of you physically every single day. So my practice is I write down my core values in my journal every single morning when I journal. And that's really helpful, because by writing it down, of course, like you just said, whether you're writing it in your journal, whether you're writing it on a whiteboard, whether you're writing it on Post-it notes, and all of those, by the way, are great places to put your values. The connection that you make by, you think the value in your mind, and then you physically write it down by hand, which is better than typing if you can do that. So you physically write it down. So now you're making the connection, the physical connection, and the neural pathways between, your writing and goes the nerves all the way up to your brain. Then you physically see the word in front of you, or the statement, and then you have the opportunity to repeat it to yourself. And if you can repeat it to yourself out loud, even better, because now you're hearing it and saying it. So as many senses as you can bring into the experience, even better. So the fact that you have them written down on the wall in front of you, or you will, and I assume that you'll just keep it there, but it might be a really great practice to every day when you, when you start work, is just to say the words out loud to yourself, right? Because you've already written them, you see them, but just say them out loud to really reinforce and remind yourself. And that's a really powerful practice when it comes to core values. And I love how you talked about checking in with yourself when you're asked something, because another really big piece about whatever your values are, self-care and boundary setting is extremely important. And for somebody that's like the yes girl, and I want to say yes to everybody, and this is something that I'm constantly working on, is setting boundaries and being comfortable setting boundaries and being comfortable saying no. That's a really great opportunity, is when, like you said, somebody or something is not in alignment with your core values. It's much easier to say no and to set those boundaries and to start practicing that. Now, when somebody is aligned with your core values and you still have to say no because you have a conflict, or you've overcommitted, or you're just really being mindful of the fact that you need to be in a resting state of energy as opposed to a go, go, go state of energy. So then it's a little bit harder. But if you can practice in the times when it's a clear no, it'll make you even stronger in that respect.
Yeah. I think it was probably about 6 or 7 years ago. I read somewhere, and I don't remember where it was at now, but it said that no is a complete sentence. And I was like,
I love that.
As a yes person who's pretty naturally, like, I want, like I was saying before, like I'll do anything for anybody. Right. I had to get really good with my business to say no to other people so that I could make space for what was actually important for me in my business. And I remember when I heard that phrase, I was like, no is a complete sentence. I was like, you're right. I used to always try to justify, like, if I said no, it was like no, comma, but like, it was always like, let me tell you why I'm saying no, or I can't do this, but I can do this. Where now I'm like, I'm so sorry, I'm not actually available that day, or no.
Right. And well,
leave it at that. Like, I don't have to explain.
Right. Well, the other one that I like that goes very well with that no is a complete sentence is a no to one thing is a yes to something else. So sometimes a no to something is a yes to yourself. Right. Or sometimes you say no to something. Here's another piece that I work with my clients is abundance versus scarcity mindset. Right. So somebody that's constantly saying yes, especially when it's out of alignment with your core values, then you're doing that most likely because you're living in scarcity. You're worried that another opportunity is not going to come along. But if you live in abundance, you know that that's not true. And if you say no to something that isn't in alignment, you're creating energetic space for that yes to happen when it's something that is very well aligned. Now think of it on the opposite. If you commit to something that isn't in alignment, you're feeling resentful, you're feeling frustrated about, it's taking up space, and then an opportunity comes up where you're like, oh man, that would be perfect, but now I'm booked doing this other thing, right? And you feel like crap. So, and then, then you have to scramble, and then you have to figure out. So instead of going through all that stress and putting your body and your mind in that like state of alarm, then start with the alignment piece and be confident that setting clear boundaries, being in alignment with your core values, and saying no is all part of self-care and all part of really saying that you are worthy.
Yes.
Right? You are worthy of living your best life.
I so love that you said that, because yeah, when you say no to something else, you're opening space to say yes to things that actually matter to you.
Right.
Like, take that in for a second. If you're podcast right now, like, you can say no to something because you're now allowing space for the things that you actually want to say yes to. Like, you're almost leaving like an open door invitation. Like I'm ready for you, universe. Like,
bring it on.
bring it. Yeah. It's so true. Like, there's been times I can even think back to in my business where I've said no to something else, and then what I actually wanted, like, fit into my life. I was able to say yes to something else that felt really good, where I can think back to many a times when I had said yes all the time to everything else. And when I would look at my calendar, there wasn't anything in it that was really for me, that was lighting me up. So when you find that shift, and you're like, when I had that realization, I was like, it was like a whole new world almost. You're like, oh, like, I can actually do what I want to do and bring in what I want to bring, because I'm opening the doors to like all the, manifesting all the good stuff, instead of all the stuff that I didn't want to do, that, like you had mentioned too, like, it makes you grumpy almost.
Right.
Like, you're like, I said yes, but I really meant no. And now thing, and I don't want to. And then when you show up, like, you don't have the right energy, because you made this whole like production out of it, right? Like, you talked it up to yourself that you don't want to be there, and you can't show up as your true authentic self anyways in that situation.
Right.
So just say yes to things that actually matter.
Right. And I know that, a big part of what you do is around, sales and marketing and social media. And a huge part of that, of course, is the law of attraction, right? You're going to attract your ideal client when you show up in alignment with who you are. And if you're taking on every client and trying to be everything to everyone, then you're not going to actually serve the people that are truly attracted to you and that truly need your service and that are truly going to pay you what you're worth, because they are attracted to you because they see your value.
Yeah, so true. So good. I love this conversation. So
I get fired up about this.
I know, I love it. Me too. Tell me a little bit about your business, as far as what have been some of like the biggest things you've had to overcome as an entrepreneur. Like, when you started your business, was there anything that was a little bit off of alignment with who you want to be, maybe wasn't in your values, or like, what obstacles did you have to overcome as you started?
Well, my biggest thing that I've had to overcome, I think, is imposter syndrome, and really around the fact that my professional background has been in sales and marketing for 20 years. So that's what I started in: corporate sales management. So B2B sales, also for my husband's small business that I've been doing for 12 years. Think about how long that was. So that's my background, is sales and marketing. My background is not in personal development. And although my degree is in communication studies, and I did a lot of work in college with interpersonal communication, and certainly being in sales, as you know, there's a lot of relationship development and emotional intelligence, and it is growth. It is developing people, especially when I was in management. So a lot of the work I do now, it has shown up throughout my professional career, just not with the same title. And so doing work around mindset and around self-care and around personal development, I had to get over. And sometimes it still shows up where I'm like, why would anyone listen to me? Why would anyone take my word for it? I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm not. And so for me, that's been my biggest challenge is, don't say what you're not, say what you are, and be confident that you're changing the way people think about themselves. And when you show up, for me, when I show up in my authentic self and I teach the way that I teach, and the message that needs to be heard will be heard by the people that are intended to hear it.
Yes. And you're going to call in your people,
Exactly.
not everybody.
Right.
You're also it's like a magnet, right? You're attracting the people that you're meant to attract, and you're also repelling the people that are not your people specifically.
Right.
And it allows you to really nurture and help the people that you're meant to.
Yeah. So that's probably been the biggest thing. Some of the other things I get caught up in, for sure, when you are in the world of, online marketing, right? There's always that like little comparison syndrome. So that's something I've had to really, tackle. some of the technical stuff sometimes gets me a little bit flustered, but that's probably true for everybody.
Yeah, I think tech is everybody's like nemesis.
Right. It's not terrible, and I'm pretty good at tech, and my husband's an IT guy, but sometimes some of the tech stuff, I'm like, I don't want to do it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm always like, is there an easier way to do this? Why do they have to
Right?
make it so simple, so
Totally.
hard? I'm like, it can be so simple.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. So what do you feel has been one of your biggest successes?
Oh, that's a good question. What has been one of my biggest successes? Um, one of the things that I'm proudest of is the community of women in my Facebook group. And when I first started, I was really drawn to being a leader of a community. I've always been a leader ever since I was a baby. My mom loves to tell this story that as soon as I was born and I was like laying in the nursery with all the babies in the bassinets, like I would start crying and then the other babies would start crying. I would stop crying, the other babies would stop crying. So I've always been a leader, and being able to show up in a way and leading a group of women that I see them engaging, I see them connecting to each other, I see them truly transforming in a way that's really, really powerful. That to me feels really, really successful. And I absolutely love seeing that all come to be, and just watching it blossom.
Yeah, I could see that, like just the transformations that you're able to bring to your community is such a beautiful thing. Like the
It's
fact that you
awesome.
can show up and lead and motivate and encourage and bring these people together too.
Yes.
I think a lot of times, especially when you're dealing with self-care and self-love and all those things, like sometimes we as women feel like we're completely alone and we're the only one going through that struggle. We have that mindset, woe is me, like
Yep.
nobody else could possibly have this problem. But then when you bring that community together and you're able to see like that you're not alone, that's when like the light bulb goes off and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this is normal. I'm
Right.
not alone. I'm not like a unicorn. This isn't happening just to me.
Right. Exactly.
So I can totally see how like that community feel would be a great place for you, like just to lead and just show up and like pull people together
Yeah.
to create a space that allows them to just kind of show up as themselves.
Yeah. I love it. It's great. And in the beginning of 2020, I had this really great idea to do all these live events. And then of course, the world shut down, but I did 2 live events earlier this year. So one in January, one in February, and they were both wildly successful, sold out. The experience that the women had who attended these events was really beautiful. I got so much positive feedback afterwards. Like I knew it had a really strong impact on their self-esteem, on their self-worth, on their overall being. And that was really cool. I also did a similar thing. I host women's circles, and I have one going starting in a couple of weeks again. And just again, seeing a small group of women come together, that's where I think that's my sweet spot where I thrive in leadership, is leading
Yeah.
a group of people, a group of women that can come together, whether it's virtually, whether it's in person, and just have that dynamic energy connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you do like the women's circles. Cause in Temecula where I live at, I host a meetup group and
Oh, cool.
I call it business coaching circles because we come together and it's that same type idea of just like leaning
Awesome.
on each other, getting the support, learning how to ask great questions and to be an amazing listener so that you can enhance your coaching skills no matter what you have going on, whether it's in your personal life with your kids or with your spouses or in your business specifically. But it just gives you a chance to listen to how other people are asking questions and what questions they ask, and not always be so quick to give the answer,
Mm-hmm.
but like show up authentically and ask questions and let people kind of feel their own way sometimes to what they want to do.
Yeah.
I know from what I've seen with just prospects and clients, so often we feel like we should do something, right? Like because everybody, like it's that word should, like we should
I
be doing
hate that
this or we
word.
should be doing that. And I'm like, stop shitting on yourself. Like,
Exactly.
what do you want to do? Like I'm huge on listening to my body and listening to my gut and my heart, and not always going from my head first, like actually listening to what my body is saying. And
Right.
that's something that I work a lot with my clients on. It's just like really feel into your body. Like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
What feels good to you? Like, don't go ask. We're so trained as a society to go to other people and get their opinion, their advice, that we don't always think for ourselves. And I think when we
Right.
give ourselves that space to just like be in tune to who we are, like the answers live within us.
Exactly. Absolutely. 100%.
So,
I agree.
yeah. So As we start to kind of wrap things up today, I always ask my guests a couple of rapid fire questions just to kind of see what everybody says. So my first question is always something that I'm super curious. I'm a curious person by nature, but I'm always curious, like what's your morning routine look like?
My morning routine. I love morning routine. So I'm an early bird. I get up at about 4:55. And it starts with meditation. So I meditate for about 10 minutes. Sometimes it's silent, or sometimes I just use music. Sometimes it's guided. I drink coffee. That's key to success for me. I love to read. I then read for about 20 minutes, and I usually am reading some sort of nonfiction, either personal development or business or something along that line, something that's enriching me and making me feel like I'm learning and growing. And then I journal. And I've got a pretty extensive journaling practice where I track the day of my cycle and I write down my gratitude and my values, and then just kind of whatever's on my mind and on my heart that I want to get out. Then I check my email just to make sure there's no fires. And also I like to read the news. So I read like 3 quick little things of news just so I feel a little bit in touch with the world, and then I put that away. And then I usually go work out. And by that time, it's about 6:45 and start the day. The kids are up and do all the things. So I spend about an hour and 45 minutes to myself every morning.
Good for you. I'm so impressed by women that can get up before their kids, because I'm not the best morning person. So I have to like try really hard to get up even 30 minutes before my kids.
Yeah,
so
it's not easy. It's not easy. But for me, I mean, I am a morning person and I like to get up early because that's like my best time. But it definitely took discipline to get to the 5 o'clock stage. But once I did, now I'm like, I can't give it up because I love it. And it's quiet. It's lovely.
That is my favorite time of the day, when I do get up early and I have come downstairs and the house is quiet and I can like just be me, like with no noise, nothing, like no chaos or craziness. Like it starts the tone of the day so much different than if you wake up, like the kids are up at the same time as you. So I definitely try to get up. I won't say I'm perfect at it by any means, but
nobody's perfect at anything, by the way.
No, I love the fact that you have made that part of your morning routine though. It's such a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
So who has made the biggest impact in your life? Has there been who's like your major influencer?
My major, my major influencer, I have to go with my husband. My husband's been my biggest influence in my life.
That's amazing. Any like specific reason why, or that you can share, like any nuggets?
We've been together almost 21 years and we've grown a lot together. And I would say that probably the biggest thing is just, he's a very good listener and he knows me better than anyone else. And he gets me better than anyone else. And we're just able to like really go to those deep questions, and he'll ask me the questions and encourage me to really do the hard work. And I respect that so much because it's not surface level. It's like we dive in deep even when it's really hard to do. And so I really appreciate that about him. And he's taught me a lot about grace and compassion and just slowing down. So lots of lessons. Thank you for sharing
that. I think it's so fun to ask this question because you get so many different answers, but I love when it's somebody who's close to us that we actually know who's made such a big impact in our lives. I think it's such a cool experience. I mean, it's fun to have, the Oprahs of the world be our influencers.
Yes, I have those people too, but like somebody that's made an actual impact on me, the biggest, I have to go with my husband.
Yeah, I love that. So beautiful. Especially like it's very inspiring that you've been married 21 years and he's like your rock. So that's pretty cool.
Totally. And it hasn't been easy, by the way.
Oh yeah, it never is. Even the best of days are still hard.
If anyone wants to hear more about that, on my LinkedIn, there's a video pinned to the top and you can hear more about my story.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, definitely go check it out. I'll go check it out too.
Yeah.
Where's your happy spot?
The beach.
When Hallie just needs to go and like reset, recharge, the beach.
The beach.
Yeah, that's mine too.
Feet in the sand, feet, not like laying out in the sun, like standing on the sand, the water coming up on my feet and just like standing there and like soaking it in.
Yes. The sound of the oceans in the back, the smell,
the smells, all of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm so with you. That's totally my spot as well. Thank goodness we're both by the beach. And then my last question for you is, and it's a little bit different right now. If you could travel anywhere in the world today, where would you go?
That is a good question. The place on my heart that is intended for next summer, but who knows with COVID, so it's all up in the air right now, is a trip to Israel and Sicily as kind of a pilgrimage trip for both sides of my family. So that's where it would be. But if it's not next year, it'll be 2022.
Yeah. Eventually we've got to be able to go back to traveling.
Totally. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It just might not be for a little bit, but that's fine.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Hallie, this has been so much fun having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. I know people are going to want to connect with you and get to know more about your story. Where do you like people to hang out, or where do you hang out so they can come join you?
Thank you so much, Darlene. Well, it's been a pleasure to be here. I really enjoyed chatting with you. I love what you asked me about. I loved where the conversation went. So very appreciative and grateful for you. You can find me on all social media. So I'll start with my website. It's just sassyhealthy.fit. You can find me on Instagram at Sassy Healthy Fit, Facebook. I'd love to invite you to join my Sassy Woman Sisterhood. I know Darlene's going to drop the link in the comments or on the show notes. And then I also have a freebie for you guys, which is a digital download of my affirmation card deck. So it's 37 affirmations. And I know we didn't talk too much about that, but I really feel strongly in putting affirmations in front of ourselves to lift our mindset, raise our vibrations, and make us feel really good. So you can download that for free and keep them on your phone or print them out, whatever works for you.
Yes, I love that. And they'll definitely be in the show notes below. So grab a copy of the affirmation cards. And Hallie, thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been so fun.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.